We're back with the Mythic Dungeon International, getting ready for game number 2 between Method NA and 40K. And of course, if you'd like to support WoW Esports, be sure to check out the trends more for Beacon or Horde and Alliance fireworks, as those toys will be not only great fun to be able to bring into your raids, you just can't see anything underneath your feet, and you love that salute, but also support the prize pool at the end of the year. Isn't that great?
It's just great. And you know what's even better is those huge yell bubbles that you can't see the health or anything to interrupt. I love it. It's great.
That's why my favorite is Kel'Thas. You just have this massive paragraph that's going to be blocking everything else in sight. It's wonderful fun, especially for quaking. I started running a little bit of quaking with tanks. Oh.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
One
might even say, hey, there it is.
Taught you all, my children.
Woo. Freehold coming up, Tyrannical, Teeming, and Volcanic on to this one. And we're also going to be having that Void Emissary coming out once again. So 40K is going to need to bounce back. And Zyronic, it really seemed like the initial strategy that they had going into this, into the Ataldazar at first, seemed all right, but they just got obliterated by the superior routing from Method NA.
I don't really want to say too much poorly about 40K, because they actually played pretty well in that match. I just think, like you mentioned, their routing might have been just a little bit not quite as good as Method. And Method today also played perfect in that entire dungeon. So
that's true.
I think Freehold, there's a lot that can go wrong here for both teams. There's a lot of difficult pulls they can do, especially on Teeming. There's a lot of dangerous trash, so we're going to have to see how they pull in this dungeon. I mean, 40K, they had some interesting strats in Ataldazar. Let's see what they can do in this Freehold.
Yeah, but Method NA is going to negate a lot of these dangerous pulls with a double Unholy DK comp.
Oh, yeah.
Teeming Freehold is certainly one of the dungeons you think about doing a lot of damage right now. Nerf tank right now, having struggles healing, and finally the Dispel comes up from Mistweaver JB, making sure that the disease is the dangerous one. It decreases healing taken by 20% per stack right now. Immense amounts of damage. Absolutely deleted the trash with the 2 Unholy DKs. Just crazy. You can only see the names of the other 3 players on the damage meter there, as they've already annihilated 27% of the trash and have started on Sky Captain Cragg, the first boss of the dungeon. Now, it is a Tyrannical boss, but Zyro, those Unholy DKs doing work. You're hanging your head in disbelief.
They did, between the 2 players, 40 million damage in less than 10 seconds. That's not okay. Exponential AoE cleave is insane. I mean, we talked about it, I think, briefly over the past couple of weekends, that these double DK comps are going to be insane. We see it in Motherlode, which is fortified. We see it, Freehold is definitely in a fantastic dungeon, especially when it's not bolstering. It's really good as well. I think Waycrest Manor and Underrun are also fantastic double DK. I think double DK Rogue is going to be something we keep seeing as we move on, especially for these dungeons that these teams are very, very good at mass pulling. It's just so good on these AoE pulls.
I mean, they're just, their prowess is insane. That wouldn't be shocked to see a strategy that we saw earlier from an aggressive pull of trash coming into the Council of Captains that we saw from No Girls Allowed earlier on. I mean, with the double DK, why not? Heck, just pull the entire dungeon on top of the boss, cleave it down for it. I joke, but it's probably possible for them to do a pretty substantial trash pull on top of the Council of Captains. We'll have to see. Now, the single target damage, last season we certainly harped on it a bit just because it was pre-Essence, etc. But Unholy DKs nowadays can hold their own in single target, even without, cleaving from mobs and benefiting from that, or of course, even the armies, which have now just been popped, I believe, on the side of Method NA. Bloodlust finally being used here for 40K. That's sitting at 23% trash and 56% on Sky Captain Cragg versus Method's 36% on Sky Captain, and of course that trash advantage of 4% at 27.
Yeah, very likely that they saved the armies for when she phases to phase 2 at 75%, because that's the more dangerous portion of the fight, where the powder shots come out from Sky Captain Cragg, which you can see on Yoda Nilf, dropping him down to single percentages of health. That's just a lot of damage, and it's definitely a more dangerous part of the fight. I think Yoda's actually kind of getting some good buffs right now, because 45k single target on an Outlaw Rogue is pretty obscene damage right there.
At 45, that's certainly greater than 40k. That's still behind on the boss right now by 12%, Zyro. So, they'll be finishing, with how quickly those Unholy DKs kind of chew through hot butter yet again in this dungeon, but they destroy the trash so quickly that you'd expect them to be a fair bit more ahead of 40k, but they're really not. In fact, 40k has closed the gap. They're sub 10%, or about 10% difference between them and Method NA, and I guess some of that advantage just shows up in the form of the Windwalker. Not only are we getting more damage from Kuri right now, a bit less from Wolf, he just probably doesn't have the same roll prowess as Yoda does, but Lozelle coming in with a fair bit of damage on the Windwalker and that 5% physical debuff.
Yeah, both teams have the 5%.
That's true, that's true.
But the thing is, there's more people that benefit from it on the side of 40k with the Windwalker Monk.
But also, I just wanted to mention, look at the healer damage difference.
Oh, yeah.
JB had 2k, barely any damage. He was just healing throughout the whole thing. You have 12k coming in from Resto.
Yeah, I wonder if he's running the Way of the Crane essence as well, because that's usually what we see a lot of Mistweaver monks use to do a lot of damage and healing at the same time for these massive AoE pulls. I'll have to take a look at that in a second here. But yeah, no, that's normally the benefit of the Mistweaver monk is for these massive AoE pulls, they can do ridiculous things. Like they can do 100k HPS and DPS on these massive AoE pulls just because of the DPS cooldowns. They just do a lot of both, and that's why teams are running them. And on top of that, it allows your healer to bring the physical debuff, so you can open yourself up to these double DK comps and still have a rogue as well, just for extra utility. It's just a different change that we've seen in the past 3 weeks that most teams have been slowly changing into, because a lot of healers have been saying it. Mistweaver should just be the best MDI healer as long as you don't really need the soothe from the rest of it.
It's really nice to see teams flexing the two different ones, and I mean, Method and A has now kind of opened up the Pandora's box of trash leading up to the second boss, and really I'm foaming at the mouth, not because I was bitten by a creature, but because I want to see just how much trash they're going to pull here. They're getting likely some cooldowns ready here. We have the Trapper CC'd paralyzed in the corner. Here goes Lighty right now, going out and grabbing some of the trash, grabbing what he can, bringing it back to Nerf Tank, who's already kind of backing up into the boss, and that's exactly what he does. On top of the boss, with I believe a triple pack on top of it, so big damage coming in here from the two unholy DKs on top of everything, wanting to make sure that they can decimate it before things get too out of hand, and that's exactly what they do, as Shakib goes well over 1 million DPS. Lighty not too far behind, but I mean, just compared to everybody else in the group, it doesn't even matter. Where did the trash go, Zyre? It's gone.
Disappeared. It got dunked by Shakib dunk. I mean, that trash just instantly disappeared. And the bosses are already at 60% HP too. That's just insane. That's just the power. This is exactly what we're talking about when we see teams pulling off the Unholy DK perfectly. We've been going back to at least, even the Spring Cup we were talking about this. Man, I want to see them pull trash on top of the boss with the Unholy DK. And with two of them, you kind of have to, or else you're not really making advantage of your comp. So to see them pull this off and do it so perfectly is awesome. By the way, I figured out why JB wasn't doing any damage.
Hit me.
He has to be in melee as a Mistweaver, and you don't want to crowd melee with the pistol shots. So that's probably why he wasn't able to do any damage. So they lost a lot there, but you know, with the he's definitely able to do damage on this boss. He's doing 35k.
But you know, let's give credit where credit's due. 40k, not far behind. They're still only before there was a 4% trash gap. Now it's a 5% trash gap. I believe they still have a couple of brutes and things in there. So from a raw trash perspective, they're actually not very far behind. But they're also 40% average between the two bosses behind Method and A, whereas they were only about 10% on Sky Captain Cragg, the first boss. So the gap is widening here between Method and A and 40k, surely but slowly. So if the teams keep playing at this pace, I mean, Method and A should be winning this.
And not only is their damage just been better in general because of the double Unholy DK, but on top of that, Nerf has been doing a good job of almost always leaving one of the captains inside those negative brew debuffs that do damage to whoever gets hit by them. You can kind of see that little brown fuzz around the boss, that brown soda splash kind of looking animation. That means he's gotten hit by that bad brew and he's taking a massive amount of damage over time. There's something like 5 to 10% of the boss's HP every time they get hit, which is a massive amount of damage, especially on both targets if they get hit.
Yeah, not 10, but I mean, it's up there, and you min-max it a lot. Now, the problem is there is a bit of RNG involved in that Captain Raoul is oftentimes very stationary, casting that barrel smash, and the brew seems to go on him quite a lot. So if a positive brew goes on him, you can't get in there to get the positive effects of it. You'll just be punted right out from the barrel smash. Likewise, obviously, if the bad brew goes on him, then he's already stationed there, and that's great, but then you can't really put Captain Jolly in there. So he really does deny effective play of those brews oftentimes with his barrel smash that gets interrupted only every other. Method NA wasting no time and doing a, once again, pretty substantial trash pull leading into the ring of booty. A lot of damage coming in on Nerf Tank right now. That's trying to play it a bit safer as Lighty runs around to the edges. Hey, had a bit of aggro, which is why you see his health sub 50%, but I believe Nerf was able to finally scoop that up once he got his Avatar T-Clap combo going and just get everything up. Now, you can see he's the only one doing damage. The two Unholy DKs were waiting for Ludwig to come down, and of course they'll be converting all of that AoE battery power into single target on Ludwig, who's down to 50% already. He literally just spawned. That was like 5 seconds.
I mean, it is a tyrannical dungeon, but still, that's ridiculous. Usually this mob takes somewhere from 45 seconds to a minute to finish off on single target, and they just ate through half of his HP. You know, hot butter. They just melted him pretty much. That was insane. Unfortunately, on the side of 40k, Rintari does go down, but it looks like it wasn't in the middle of a pull. It was during a skip there, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. They'll just res him up quickly. But just a little 5 seconds on the board for them, plus the res time, plus the cast time on the res. Not exactly what you want to see.
No, I actually think that was a mistake because Ludwig had already spawned. Look, they're running around with Ludwig. They can't exit this arena, and Rentari released, so they're trying to run around in circles. Now, Ludwig hits very, very hard, as you saw on rest, so he is kiteable. He moves very slowly here, but you have to get a nice kind of circle of padding as Lazelle's trying to do a bit of damage, but he gets chunked down too. Nobody's going to be able to really touch this guy until Rentari gets back in, so that 5-second death converted into a very big mistake, Zyro.
Yeah, Lazel tried to taunt with Karma, and that didn't work. Restu Igloo's trying to run out of the room, but that's not going to work. He's going to get food thrown on him, so I'm not sure what the plan is here for him. That's really unfortunate. He's going to have to release too. I thought it was going to be a small mistake. It turns out to almost be a full team wipe. 4 deaths on the board for that for 40k. That's not what you want to see.
No, that's not.
However, on the side of Method and A, they've gone back to doing trash on top of bosses again.
I am shocked and or appalled at the moment as Trothak hits 90%. All the trash just basically melts. Okay, I just said Trothak was at 90%, and by the time I finished my sentence, he was at 80. So, once again, the Unholy EK is absolutely decimating damage. And I mean, I'm kind of just speechless here. This is crazy. They're so well practiced playing around these Unholy DKs. You know, the theme of Season 2 earlier in the spring, Zyro, you and I talked a lot during it. Hey, you know, you got to play around the Unholy DKs. The Unholy DKs have a lot of prowess. You got to convert that into single target damage. Now, they're so strong. They've scaled so well that you bring 2 of them plus the essences on top of it, and Method and A is using it to maximum efficiency.
Yeah, I'm looking at the dungeon right now, and there were 10 minutes into the dungeon, and I'm pretty sure Method and A has done 4 pulls. First pull, they did the first pull, and then they did the first boss. Then they did the second pull into the second boss. Third pull into the Ludwig, and then fourth pull into Trothak. They're just being, and we talk about these speed dungeons. The number 1 mechanic for a speed dungeon is to limit the dungeon to the smallest amount of doable pulls possible. And they've only done 4 pulls at 10 minutes, and they've done it perfectly with no deaths. And they've been smashing them with the Unholy DKs. This is ridiculous.
This is literally just the epitome of cleave all the trash on top of bosses, combine everything with bosses. There's nothing preventing them from doing it. I mean, why not? There's no affixes, there's teeming, so there's even more trash encouraging you to do that, and it's working out well for them as they sit at 67% trash with 35% on Trothak. Bit of scramble here, of course, for 40k that's just had that suffer from Rentari's death and haven't been able to really recover from it just yet. They're sitting at 56% trash. I'm not exactly sure where Wolf's going. I think he's getting ready for probably a Tricks of the Trade pull here, or I mean, they've completely exited the Ring of Booty, and yeah, he moves up. There's Tricks of the Trade. He grabs some of the trash on top, and everybody is getting a huge amount of trash to Rentari, who dips down to 1% health, barely manages to hang on, and finally stabilizes, waiting for everything to join them in the Ring of Booty, and they as well pull everything on top of Trothak, but man, oh man, he was so close to dying there.
That's spooky as well. He's still not out of the danger zone just yet. He's still dropping incredibly low. But the thing is, they just don't have the efficiency that Method and A does. Even though Curry himself is doing 800k right now, they don't have 2 Unholy DKs. Whenever Method and A did this pull, they had 1 DK doing 1,000,000 DPS and another one doing 800k. And I mean, just lacking the second Unholy DK is killing their damage throughput right now.
I mean, it's still an impressive amount of damage throughput, but when you're, you know, mirrored against a team with 2 Unholy DKs that's doing double what you're doing, it's hard to kind of pay attention to that. But here they are. They get right up and in the face of the bridge right now as they finish off Trothak Method at 71%. Now, typically we see teams in the, I want to say 81% to 82% range before they get over to Harlan Sweete, which is what they're doing. So they're actually going to need to combine a fairly significant more amount of trash on top of the boss. But guess what, Zyro? They have 2 Unholy DKs. So who cares if they have to combine an extra 10% worth of trash? That should be easy for them. Now, let's not forget, there is the Void Emissary present on the side there that is going to prevent them from dealing with too much of the trash right now as they all get ready. Nerf, of course, leads the charge as they all get upstairs. JB takes just a bit of a hit, likely some healing aggro on the way up, but they all manage to get upstairs safely and immediately shadow melt all of the trash off. You know, they make it look so nice, and I forgot who it was earlier, but they did it quite well. But I don't know, the past few weeks, people have just not been able to do that pull properly, that skip properly. Yeah,
it was Method U who did it perfectly earlier, too. And there's just been so many times we've seen this exact skip where you just have everyone shadow melt at the same time, where somebody's been too close to the trash they pulled and they had to die and get rest. It's just extra time on the board. It's an extra 20 seconds you have to waste for the death timer plus the res cast. It's not what you want to see from these teams. But that being said, trash on top of the boss, Bloodlust popped. Let's see some Unholy DK damage here.
Let's see some Unholy DK, and I can't see anything except red on the top 2 spots on that board right now. Nerf actually eking out the third, and huge amounts of healing coming out of JB as well, just to make sure he's stabilizing the pull. Finally, Nerf Tank starting to catch up to him. Just a bit in HPS, of course. We know he has that throughput from Edict and Urchin, that typical tank combo here, so kind of counters a bit of the weakness, if you will, of warrior tanks who don't have a lot of self-sustain, or really any self-sustain outside of IP. So Urchin doing work, Edict doing work, and everything nice and stable. All the trash is gone. The Unholy DKs have done their job for now, and they're just hungry for the next round of pulls, because that only put Method NA up to 84% trash, and Harlan is already in phase 2, sub 60.
Oh yeah, they just absolutely slammed that boss. And the thing I was specifically pointing out is not only was he doing 80, 85k HPS, he was also doing that much DPS too. He was doing the exact same amount of DPS as HPS, but because they had two people doing 800k DPS, his damage bar barely even covered up the J in his name. Like his damage bar was so small when he was still doing 100k DPS. It's ridiculous how much relative damage these teams are doing. But that being said, I mean, these Unholy DKs just do so much damage. I mean, if I were one of these players and I was feeling a little bit cocky, I'd be like, you know what, we don't even need the cannon brush. Just pull on top of the boss. I'm going to cleave them down. That's how much damage they do. However, while we're talking, Nerf does go down. Fortunately, they have the battle res available for him from either of the Unholy DKs. They should be able to get him up quickly here, and hopefully no one goes down because of that. A little bit of scariness there, but they still do have one more battle res just in case they need it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the reward for playing the dungeon so clean and so well. They had 2 battle reses ready. They had double Unholy DKs. We've mentioned about 400 times in this dungeon, so either one of them able to res immediately. Everything was quite stable already. Harlan doesn't hit very hard there. It's in a Tyrannical environment. He doesn't hit that hard, though. He was able to just res and get the taunt off, no problem. 93% trash right now as Harlan is entering his final phase, at which point he will just melt because he will take double damage and also have 100% increased attacks, but not really a concern for a prot warrior that has block against those attacks. 40k with their own large pull coming in on top of Harlan Sweete, and the Bloodlust is pop for them.
Yeah, they've got so much time here. It wouldn't surprise me to see them go for just a safe play where they finish off the boss and then go deal with either of their 2 Ravager packs, just so they don't have to deal with any of the difficulty of using the cannon barrages to finish off. And I think that is the final cannon barrage they're going to get, so we'll probably see them do that. I mean, they've got the double Unholy DK, like we've mentioned 20 times this dungeon, just to finish that off really easily. But, I mean, outside of that one random tank death, these are 2 almost perfect dungeons for Method NA. They've played absolutely spectacularly in this first match, and if there was any question about how they were playing after time trials, I think they've completely snuffed any of that out.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and 93% right now. So as you mentioned, they are indeed, I think, rearing up. They're going to probably just nosedive right on top of that Void Emissary trash there and grab the yeah, so there's a Ravager, the double Ravager pack indeed, so they're probably just going to combine all this together, stay alive while the Ravagers do the work on the group. Now, they do want to split them. The Ravager only affects itself and the 2 closest proximity targets, which is why you saw a good combination of Death Grip on the Oarsman combined with a Ring of Peace on the side to prevent the other 3, so that the 2 painful motivations were split well into the rest of the group. There go the painful motivations. One of them was interrupted, though. I'm not really sure who got that stun. I think it was just a stun, but it recast it finally. Nerf goes down, so a bit of a sloppiness here at the end as the rest of the team runs off to make sure that they're not clipped by the Void Emissary, but that's all they need as they sweep the series 2-0.
Yeah, a little sloppy at the end onto that one, but otherwise, Method NA just blew through this run. The double DK madness was just wrecking havoc throughout this dungeon, Tettles.
Yeah, triple rogue seems to be dead. Double Unholy is definitely the future for big pulls. It's very interesting because basically there's only a few dungeons that you can actually get away with double Unholy Death Knight because of the sheer size that you absolutely have to go to be able to make sure that it works out. But Method NA really puts on a clinic and shows why it does work whenever it does.
And you're even able to see, a variety of different pulls. I mean, the one leading up to Sky Captain Cragg's room, for example, just melted in 20, 30 seconds or something along those lines on an 18. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, for pulls of that sheer size, most of the time, the danger is on your tank. However, whenever you're pulling something that big, with double Unholy Death Knight, it just dies so quickly that your tank doesn't even have time to drop out of shield wall or last stand with bolster talent. So there is actually no danger. He doesn't need to kite or anything else because of the sheer speed that it dies at. Nevertheless, 40k and Method NA were kind of neck and neck through Sky Captain Cragg. 40k just ended up having some issues later on in the dungeon, especially with how Method NA were pulling on top of Ludwig with this double Unholy Death Knight, absolutely obliterating all of that trash right on top of Ludwig. And I know you guys mentioned it during the cast, but Ludwig was at 60% health after that, all of that. And most of the time you just do that pull without Ludwig, so being able to pull it with him for no additional downsides was so good. They pulled this dungeon in very few pulls. I think it's like the fewest we've ever seen. I think Tyrannical was talking about it was like 5 pulls or something overall, which for a dungeon like Freehold can be very dangerous because you have mobs like harpooners and sappers and just all these things that will like fixate and could potentially just like ruin your day. However, Method in A really shows that they have practice for this week, shows that they've put in the time to learn this double Unholy Death Knight. I know that the first time we saw it was Abracadabra was like the only team that was playing it last West Cup. However, we're seeing it a lot this weekend, and it's good that Method in A has really put in the time and practice for this comp.
Most definitely. And then even when we were looking at the Council of Captains as well, grabbing all of those mobs in together, they existed for a very brief second in time before they disappeared.
Yeah, so how you actually pull with Unholy Death Knight is you continue to add mobs until the pull is actually less dangerous because of the damage amplification that they end up getting from just their D&D and some of their traits and just how their damage ends up scaling up. So this pull looks very large and very dangerous. However, Method in A drops both of those Death and Decays, and then it ends up just like obliterating all of the trash that are on top of Captain Raw and Captain Jolly. And then once that ends up happening, Captain Raw and Jolly are at like 70% health, and it was literally like 20 seconds to drop them that far. It was insane.
I'm interested to see what other dungeons these teams can actually pull out pulls like this that make the Unholy DK possible. Because we've seen it in Underroute, we've seen it in Motherload, now we've seen it in Freehold. I mean, I feel like you mentioned, it gets to a point where there's kind of like this point where you pull so much that it makes the pull easier because you can kill them in your small AoE CCs with the insane burst from Holy Decays. I'm interested to see, like, between now and BlizzCon, what these teams can pull out to make this even better.
Well, it also depends on like the affixes because you can't do it on stuff like bursting you can't do it on bursting or bolstering, and so you kind of have to be careful.
Well, I mean, you can.
You're right, you can. And then for explosive, you have to kind of temper yourself too. You need like one outlaw rogue kind of running around shooting the explosives. So it can be kind of dangerous depending on the affixes. But for Freehold that has pretty neutral affixes, it was a nice showing.